Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. This is the April Siteglide Town Hall. This session, we're going to give a few updates on what we've been working on. Been a busy few months, and I'll also hand over to you guys for anything that you'd like to bring up, discuss, any successes, any challenges, those kind of things. And we've got a few bits that we'd like to get some feedback on and help us develop the things that are in the roadmap. So let's get started. So just wanted to give a few updates on what we've been doing and what's been completed in case you've missed it. There are more than this, and things like Studio V2, if you still haven't managed to have a look at that, definitely recommend having a look. You'll find that's installed on new sites as standard now. So don't just rely on this list, but this is a few key ones. So for billing, we have reseller history now. So any of those on the reseller model, you could only previously see what units had been used in the current month. You'll now have a history for each site, a full breakdown of each site as you see it this month, but you'd see it for the previous month. Obviously, that will only have started, I believe, last month. So you'll start to see that now going forwards, and be able to go back and see maybe which sites have been increasing, decreasing, or whatever it might be. Any questions on that one from anybody? Do jump in if you want to. Next up, we've got e-commerce VAT calculation improvements. Been working with John and Nick on that. So it's been a pretty big one. It has meant sort of infrastructure changes there, which I'll come on to one of the other ones we're working on. So quite a lot of work there to make sure it's not only calculates VAT correctly, but allows you the flexibility to choose how you want to calculate the VAT, whether it's sort of line item or for the whole cart maybe. So I'll mention the other one, and then if you guys want to jump in with any questions as well, feel free. On the next slide, there's one more link to that. And then another e-commerce related one is Klarna. That has been released and it's usable. Again, any feedback would be great, but we haven't finished the docs for that. So just waiting on docs there. Next up, DNS. Made some good improvements there from a sort of management and adding and managing DNS perspective. Things like the www redirection. It was a bit confusing previously, but we've tried to make that simpler. You can turn it off. It's on by default, and some other things as well to show which records perhaps haven't fully propagated. They'll say pending against them, so you can kind of get an idea of where maybe it's not working correctly. We've actually got a few more on that we're working with Platform OS on, but we've released those improvements. And then the last one on here is site copy improvements. Sometimes sort of multiple sites were being copied at once, and there was a bit of a confusion in the queue, let's say. So we've built a better queue system to manage that, and now shouldn't have any issues with site copy in general. Any questions there on any specific ones?
Do you want questions about progress so far at this point, or would you like to leave that to later?
I'll go on to the next one then, and that should give you a better idea. And it'll probably link to the VAT calculations one. Yeah. So if we move on quickly, apologies, I've got the animations right. So the one that really links to that VAT improvements is that we have essentially we're having to or needing to implement a 4 decimal place system for the whole of e-commerce effectively, or for products, which has been quite a big infrastructure change. It maybe sounds simple, but there's a lot going on there behind the scenes, and it's had to work across the whole system. So we're very close on that, I believe, and Matt's working on that one most heavily at the moment. So in terms of an update, very close. I can't give you an exact date on it, but yes. And then that finishes the sort of VAT support issues as well, I would hope, because it will all run off 4 decimal places. Any particular questions there, John? I think you might be.
No, that was it. You answered it. Well done. Thank you very much.
Good. Good. Then obviously one more for you, Nick. We'd love to get attribute combinations out as soon as we can. We're working on it. Obviously, we tried to prioritize something more, something existing and more critical, which would be the 4 decimal places in the back calculations. But it's next step after that.
Cool.
A pretty little one, the discount code alert. I believe that's basically done, and just waiting on a few little bits on that, maybe docs. Then e-commerce again, Apple Pay and Google Pay. Technically, it is done because it was done part of Klarna. That was the upgrade from Stripe. I can't remember what it was called before, but to Stripe Elements, and essentially that opens up the ability to use these. But we haven't done the docs on those, and we can probably make it a little bit simpler to use. So we've left that in there as what we're working on. I think if anybody's got any sort of use cases for that, it would actually be good to work with you guys and sort of maybe help implement it.
We've already got that on. Sorry, Luke, we've already got that on a couple of our sites via
you probably do
via a different method that I think Matt helped us put together. So we
just want to sort of finish it more officially. So maybe if we could actually sort of catch up with you guys on how you feedback and just double check and then get the docs finished for it, that would be good.
Cool. Yes.
You'll probably notice a lot of e-commerce related ones. A few reasons for that, really. It makes sense to try and tackle e-commerce have a good focus on it, let's say. There's some that are interlinking, and it's just a very big piece to try and work on. And obviously some immediate needs. It's great that you guys, Website Success, are bringing on some e-commerce related projects, and appreciate that you're sort of at the rock face a little bit with some of those, bringing them across some other platforms that maybe have certain functionality. So obviously want to support on that and want to give it a good focus. At some point, obviously, we'll sort of slow that down a bit once you're sort of happy, once we've got the main things in there, and be able to come on to some of the other points I'll mention next. But a good focus on e-commerce. I think it was, it hadn't had a lot of focus prior to that and needed a bit more work. And to kind of round that off, really, is the Flowbyte e-commerce layouts. One of the reasons e-commerce didn't get as much attention as we would have liked is we were really waiting to have the right kind of front-end experience, layouts, those kind of things to help us get it right. And we've been working with Flowbyte for a couple of years now, and it was sort of always around the corner, and they've managed to really plow on with that. So the Figma designs were released maybe December, maybe January, and then they've been slowly, very quickly actually, releasing the developer or the code layouts for each one, and we're trying to keep up with them. Matt's working away on those to try and get those layouts done. So I'll show you them in a second, but things like checkout, cart, product list view, all of those. Once we have that, the plan is that we can really put together a finished demo site or e-commerce template into the marketplace, which shows best practice from our side as well of e-commerce. And if you guys have got any things that you would like to see added to it, we can do that. So we've kind of all got a starting point for e-commerce with best practice in mind.
Yeah, we're just building a cart and checkout ourselves. So as soon as we get that, we'll share that. We'll share that with you guys, and I think we probably reconfigure Apple and Google Pay how it connects now, so it connects in your new simpler route. But yeah. So we'll have that, and we can share that with the community as well and put it on as a module. So yeah, hopefully that won't be too far away, because we want to roll it back on a lot of our e-commerce sites once we've got it.
Is that Tailwind that you've done with it?
Yes, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the differences, because obviously the point of Flowbyte and Tailwind is a lot of it is open sourced anyway, and you guys can add whatever you want to it. So it is not really duplication. I'm sure you'll have some layouts that are different to theirs. So we'll end up hopefully adding them all to the library, and just gives more options. obviously Flowbyte aren't designing for Siteglide, so there'll be some more Siteglide specific functionality that maybe you guys are doing or others will do to get the most out of the platform.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so last one, I've got a few slides on one on Flowbyte e-commerce layouts, one on docs overhaul, and I think maybe one more, which I'll come on to afterwards, but I'll just sort of quickly touch on them now. So the docs, we want to, I think they could be a lot better. We've got docs in too many places. So at the moment you've got the help docs, which are kind of more customer friendly, but also, yeah, it's a bit confusing. We've got developer docs separately, and then we've got API and site builder docs. So sort of 4 different places that you might have to go to. And I don't think it's easy enough to find what you're looking for. So we want to consolidate, improve, and look at ways in which we can make it way more sort of contextual, interactive, and just a better experience, really. So I'll come on to that in a second. Any feedback from you guys and ideas on that in this call or afterwards would be very helpful, because obviously we might go a certain route and we might be missing some key points. Yeah, so I'll just fly through the what's next list, and then we'll delve into a couple of those and then over to you guys for anything else. So what's coming next? Again, this is everything that kind of went into the melting pot in January, February that we discussed with you guys. We've tried to come up with a list that's you know, not too long, but this isn't the only things. It's just some of the main things that we wanted to highlight based on feedback. So yeah, just running through those quickly. Admin panel customization, I've got a quick slide on that. It's a really interesting one. It's a bit like when we did user roles last summer. To some extent, it's hard to justify. You might not think there might not be it's not a feature in some ways, but it's really, really powerful in terms of locking down what you can let customers see, how they see it, and you can essentially customize Siteglide to be whatever you want it to be. So Tim, thanks for your sort of input and suggestions on that. It had been something we sort of always wanted to do, but it's great to now see different use cases for it, and it's very good timing with having user roles and custom UI quite firmly in place now. So it's quite a big one. We'll come back to that later, so I'll maybe talk about it more then. Category drag and drop and combining it with menu builder v2. Menu builder's been a bit like one of those ones I mentioned that's sort of been there for a while. It's sometimes hard to justify putting it at the top of the list, but I think now we have this plan that we all discussed in sort of January, February about improving categories at the same time, making it all more dynamic and sort of easier to use. It makes sense to really focus in on that and try and actually not just build a slightly better menu system, but actually build a feature that's really, really useful across the whole platform. Yeah, so next up would be categories, rich text field or custom fields. This is probably one it's a tricky one. We want to put custom fields everywhere, but again, we wouldn't necessarily do it on a certain place unless it's really needed. I think, Nick, this was one where a field was added, but you probably need another field, and then we get to the point where you might as well be able to add any fields. Is that right? Oh, sorry, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. John muted us. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the use case was, but
it was to do with if you had a category and then you had an image and the image needed a title, I mean, or you needed to do something with the category, you had to end up using the image alt field, which you kind of needed for the image for SEO, but you then had to utilize that field in order to be able to sort the anyway. Basically,
yeah,
there weren't enough fields for what we needed it to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the one above really, and like categories can be such a powerful feature. We purposely built it to be system wide rather than catalogs for e-commerce and whatever. So we really want to make categories as powerful as possible. And I think when we focus on categories, it makes sense to, I mean, custom fields is such a powerful tool across other areas. We want to replicate that. So yeah, I think it makes sense to add it in. I think we're pretty clear on the use cases as well. Anybody else has any specific questions, feel free to jump in, but otherwise I'll get through this and then we can go into some specifics. Right, so next up would be the site builder update for building modules. We spoke about that in the workshop and town hall last time. So we're just trying to get it so that it's fully running off Siteglide features, so forms and things, and make it easier for you to build modules using Site Builder. It's definitely the way to go. It just means that we keep everything modular and easy to build from. Then we've got e-commerce discount codes on specific product categories. Yeah, just didn't make it into the what we're doing now list, but it's still linked to the e-commerce work. So really want to get that done all together really with e-commerce. And then lastly, we have booking module. I put it as a sort of community workshop project. The honest answer is there's always so much to be doing. Everybody from the last workshop was really positive about the idea of one, but I think we all found that it's hard to know exactly what it would be. There's lots of different versions, so I think it's something that we're going to just need to try and move forwards as a sort of discussion point, and potentially sort of we want on the Site Guru's side want to have time to put it to build these kind of things and release them in the marketplace. So it might be some sort of collaborative effort. It'd probably be that somebody's been working on something and we talk and collaborate on that. So I know that well, Michael and I can't remember who else it was had their own, and yeah, we'll just try and pull it all together and make sure there's a off-the-shelf version available ASAP. Good. I've done got a bit of talking. I'll just show a couple more things on a couple of things in detail, and then we can jump into anything else. So I wanted to just quickly talk about docs, because I think we could do with some input on this, and there's quite a lot of ways to go. We spent quite a bit of time trying to work out how to do it, and then we can look at like the details, but we know that we want full control over our docs this time. So currently it's in different places, some of which is not our software or not in our control. So we want the overriding central place to be GitHub. So all of the actual docs will live in GitHub as pages and files, but we will then be able to from there put them into anything, basically, whether that's directly into the product. So we've got an example here of having, so on the right hand side where toolbox is, have it there all the time as an option that you can click in a sidebar, so that you can potentially search for something, or it pulls up stuff automatically based on where you are. That's the sort of in context target that we would like to achieve, where you don't actually have to search for things, you're going to see it automatically, as well as some sort of like guides and sort of quick walkthroughs, whether it's interactive. We're still unsure about how valuable that is. I don't know about you guys, but I find whenever there's those walkthrough tours, I tend to skip to the end as quickly as possible and try and play around with it myself. So those are the kind of things we probably need to think about. I think personally, I think making things more available, easier to search for, and us making sure that they appear is more valuable. But yeah, over to you guys on that one. Just lastly is the search side. I think we really want to ensure that it pulls everything together, and what we're looking at and have effectively implemented is a AI-based search, which would allow you to ask a question and it would write an answer based on our docs, and it would also pull up links to those articles and items. I said quite a bit there, but I just wanted to try and give you an idea of what it might, the infrastructure behind it, so being centralized to GitHub and us having full control, then how we make it accessible and integrated within the product, and then how we make it sort of searchable and usable. Any particular feedback there?
The only thing I'd say on the walkthrough is, yeah, completely useless for us, but actually when we're onboarding clients that have that might be quite a nice little feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, currently we've kind of just done some walkthrough videos for them, which is fine. But yeah, other than that, definitely good to consolidate the docs. It's very jumpy around the place at the moment when you when you do need to find something. So and kind of bringing AI in there to power the even just on a search point of view to power that search, I think will be really quite helpful. So yeah, definitely heading in the right directions on that.
That's good to hear. One of the complexities or the Rubik's Cube for us, and a sort of an added dimension, is we have to try and think about the different types of users. So if we take billing, for example, we don't really, if you want to be able to let your end customers use our docs rather than you having to replicate everything, we want to be able to ensure that you can provide just what they need to see. So by putting it in GitHub and some of the extra tools we've got, we can use visitor authentication to work out what they can see. So we will restrict certain things to agency level users only, which helps us a lot. And that should mean then the search is even more useful because they would only be able to search what's available to them. So yeah, that was a dimension that we had to kind of really get our heads around first. With that in mind, do you think you would, if you knew that the docs would only show them what they should see, do you think you guys would generally refer them to Siteglide docs, or would you still tend to do your own?
No, I'd refer them to Siteglide docs because they're more likely to be more up to date than ours. Because ours are already out of date. We don't have time to update them, so it's
hard.
It is hard, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we direct them to you. So.
Okay.
We have quite a lot of docs which are just kind of describing the admin UI. Like if you want to add a X, click this button and this button. And it is very difficult to keep it up to date for us as well, because we are updating the admin faster than the docs for that kind of doc. And that is one of the ones we did want feedback on is it helpful to have those docs that explain how to use the UI, or would it be better to spend that time improving the user experience of the UI so that it was obvious? And that is another sort of
you'll always get someone who needs a hand in hold who doesn't really understand how these things work, and what seems obvious to us and you there was, well, I had no idea, I've never seen this before, I don't know where to go. And whilst I'm
scared of it,
yeah, absolutely, I'm scared to touch it in case I break it. So having that sort of overview of how to do things would be incredibly helpful. Sorry to add more work, but
what format do you? I don't think there's an answer to this necessarily, but is there a particular format that you think is right? So pictures and text as a step-by-step guide, videos, interactive
people always, I think if you've got the capacity to do videos, I don't want Nick thinks, I think
the most useful ones I find are when you've got a video at the top and then the stages are broken down below, and actually there's some AI tools where you can kind of do the video and it does a chunk of the work for you now. Not, it's not complete, but yeah, that's certainly what, when I'm looking at doing things. We've got to move some Umbraco sites at the moment, and boy, could I do with that just to remind me how Umbraco works. But yeah, that kind of function is or kind of layout is the one that I tend to like, because I can choose, then I can decide, oh, it's a minute video, or I can just jump down to 0.3, which is the actual point I need. So yeah, that seems to work quite well for me personally, but everybody's different when it comes to learning. So
I'm the same, Nick. It's good to have the video there because you can follow it live, but you're then skipping, zooming back and forth. No, I've done a bit, I know that bit or whatever. So having the docs below and the description below is always helpful. You can just scoot down to the bit that you need. So it's a combination of both, but it's a lot of work, like you said, to do.
I think the other thing is just knowing, like, if videos and screenshots and text are all important, it's focusing on what are the most common user frequently asked questions, what are the most common end client journeys through the UI that we can focus the most time on. Because at the moment, I think we've gone wide and tried to describe everything. And the wider it is, the harder it is to keep up to date. And they may actually spend most of their time trying to work out how to do a few specific things. And if we could focus on videos on those, it would actually help for most people. But it's just knowing what those common user journeys are. Where do you like to let the clients go, and where do you want them to keep some ignorance and stay out of? Makes sense.
I think you'll find most of the time it's them adding content to modules and or e-commerce, and how do you add a product? How do you change the prices? How do you do this?
Right.
How do you if I want to add a new tax code?
So especially
where discount code, what do I do?
Especially where there are multiple tabs for a feature. Exactly. If it's just load up one screen and everything is on one screen, it might be a bit easier. But if things are in different tabs, different areas, that's where it's most useful.
I think when we did it, we kind of split it into sort of like pages, and sort of like pages and blogs in the blogs module. Because once you're in the blogs module, all the other modules kind of work the same.
Yeah.
Bit of an explanation on web apps, but all web apps are customizable. So it's just they kind of work the same as blogs with the same kind of layout anyway, and how it works. And obviously, you build web apps to suit the site, but e-commerce and then a sort of an overview of Site Manager, as in don't go here.
We need to start turning that off now, don't we, for people as much as
But the thing is, they do need it because they need to get into the exports and imports to be able to take it. If they decide they want to export their products and do a database import, they need to be able to click on the exports to be able to get out.
I think with a lot of it is things will change from our point of view insofar as we're now using kind of AI note takers for Zoom meetings. So where we've run training in the past, it's kind of we run the training. Yes, they've got access to the video, but it's actually hard to work through that video. Whereas now they've got a transcription, they can kind of quickly search by keyword on the transcription, and that becomes a more powerful element. And there's so much variety from customer to customer in terms of what we do. It almost needs to be a bit bespoke. And whilst yes, it'd be handy to have these little snippet bits done by Siteglide, there's no way you can talk somebody through one of our more complicated web apps on there. So and where we use something and it displays on the front end in a completely different place to somebody else's web app. So
exactly,
yeah, it's an interesting one where it probably does need to be a bit more bespoke. We are here for support for our clients, and maybe actually that's the thing they'll do. They'll just pick up the phone because it's quick and easy, rather than trying to dive into a document set that they've almost got to learn how to use document sets. So yeah, I'm not completely convinced that if you guys did, maybe at a basic level, this is how you use this is how you use that, and then it kind of almost stays there, at that level. But I don't think you want to go too deep on the docs for end users.
I don't think we can, because the other dimension there is if you guys start using user roles and custom UI and admin menu configuration, it won't even look the same. It won't have any of the same things as the doc. So it's actually more dangerous probably for us to do that. Yeah. I mean, we're keeping that in mind, and obviously working out what to sort of lock down or hide and show. So yeah, I think our main aim then needs to be making sure that you guys have the information you need, and we make it easier for you to build and find things and train team members and that kind of stuff. And then obviously I think this is where the how-to guides come in. If we have some basic standardized typical processes that you guys could share for how to edit a web app item, how to do this, that will probably
Things like how to use Studio. I mean, that would be a one, is it? Because that's going to be pretty much standard across everyone. If you're using it, it's going to be a standard interface, and I find the bits in the middle may change, but how to use that, and that would be really helpful for a client to be able to point in and say, well, watch this and read this. This will explain how it works. How you can do your own stuff, and this is what we want. So.
Yeah, and conversely, we could spend all our time trying to do docs for everything and not even do a good studio one.
Yeah,
it's good. No, that's really helpful. Just quickly on this screenshot, I actually did this because of one of the points that Matt made. This was a few weeks ago. Where is it that our UX is the problem rather than the doc? And I think one of the good use cases of that is the clients feature in Portal. Nearly everybody at the beginning gets confused with a client versus a site, and inviting users to a site versus inviting users to a client. And we've made it complicated, and I don't think it's the best terminology. So again, we'll work through things like that. One example is calling clients projects, and projects would only be available if you're a agency user with maybe more than one site or something like that. So your first experience is simple. And then we explain what projects are, or maybe everything has a project, and then you only invite users. I don't know. We need to think that kind of thing through, but we definitely sometimes make it more complicated than we need to. It's powerful, but it's So I think there'll be things like that where we kind of get your input and we try and work out, what's really frustrating for you guys, or what took the longest to learn. And see where we can improve it before we spend a whole load of time documenting it and doing videos.
Yeah, because it could spend the same amount of time to add a tooltip at a point where people are commonly stuck as it would be to write the doc, but the tooltip's more powerful and it stays up to date, because if we come along and update the UI again, the tooltip being in the UI code is going to be updated along with that UI, so it almost keeps itself up to date in a more real-time sense. So there's a lot of benefit to that as an approach for clients. We're not saying that it should be obvious to clients. We're saying actually we could put that time into making it more obvious in the UI itself.
Yeah. So yeah, this will be an ongoing process. We're working through getting all the docs into GitHub and the new place first. Obviously, one of the reasons this came up is we lost some imagery from developer docs, which I don't know who it's affected, but they were on an old version of our docs, and annoyingly, we've lost some of those images. So we're going to go through and replace those, because that's just the quickest thing to do. But it sort of prompted us to go, right, what are we doing with docs? Let's consolidate. Let's make sure we have full control over it. So we'll get them all into the GitHub kind of infrastructure, and including things like Site Builder. That's another one that is out on a limb, really, and it's a bit confusing. So we'll try and make sure that everything is all in one place, and then we'll start to look at how we can improve it. So we'll probably have something in Discord, or maybe even more sessions where we can kind of get your input and thoughts on things. Would really appreciate any, if you have an idea at some point or get frustrated with something, just drop it in that channel, and it'll help us get it right. Good. Anything else on docs that anybody wanted to mention before we move on? Okay. What's next? I can't remember. Right, Flowbyte. So I mentioned this earlier, but just wanted to really touch on this more, because I think it's a real opportunity, a bit combined with docs, for us to make we want to make the experience with Siteglide quicker, easier, and better. So there's a lot of things to try and tackle. I think Adam Broadway would always say you only can have two, but when sort of talking to a client, but we're going to aim for all three. And the way we're doing that is the infrastructure wise for better is using, bringing in Flowbyte, for example, helps us get better on the sort of layout side of things. We tried it ourselves with Studio. I think with the Studio layout, the Bootstrap design system. I think it was fine. I think people use it, but it's a whole product in itself to try and maintain. And obviously that's why we went down the sort of Flowbyte route and the Creative Tim for Bootstrap. Now we have these layouts available for e-commerce. We want to really sort of close the loop on this and make sure that we've got a good layout or lots of good layouts for each type of feature in Siteglide, all built into Site Builder effectively and Studio, and then templates off that you can start from. And what that enables us to do is really sort of standardize. We can put together templates, site templates that you can start from. You guys can add modules and things on top based on the Flowbyte framework, and we can just try and make some sort of standardization in a world that typically is quite messy. If you look at Theme Forest or basically any other platform, they're pretty much working off individual templates that you have to fully customize. As we all know, the client wants some sort of combination of 3 different ones that they like, and before you know it, every site is completely different. So I think we've got a really good opportunity here to standardize and hopefully offer something that's as flexible as possible, but also best practice and quick out of the box. Yeah, so we're working on those layouts at the moment. I just wondered if there was any feedback from anybody on how that's going, either with the non-e-commerce stuff or e-commerce specifically.
I don't think I'd actually realised they'd released them yet. That's how busy it's been.
I think we're still missing a product list, which is quite a big one, I think. But I'm pretty sure if we don't get it, we can use cards. So it's yeah, along with the layouts will probably come some other sort of front end tools. I don't know who's used the live updates specifically, but it comes with a lot of our layouts. And I think for this project, we'll be improving live updates so that you can, let's say on the cart, you could just update the totals when you increase the quantity rather than refreshing the area where you're clicking the quantity increase button to get a slightly better, more flexible UX. Because at the moment, there's a bit of a feeling that when you press this plus button, it refreshes the list, it's interfering with you pressing the button. So it won't just be new layouts, it will be just a few more front end tools across the layouts, which just help to improve experiences overall.
Flowbyte's becoming one of the fastest growing front end. See, Tailwind's the framework. Flowbyte, I guess, is the sort of library on top, and it's great, but it is only the layouts effectively. So what we're obviously trying to really do is provide that out of the box functionality and interaction and everything all in one. And I think there's a good opportunity to do that and add to it. I know you guys, sort of John and Nick, you're sort of looking at what you're already working on and can turn into modules. And I think that's such a obvious and beneficial way of doing things. Build something for a project and then go, right, we can reuse this internally and, you know, might put it on the marketplace as well. So I'm very happy with the framework, the sort of infrastructure we've got now. We just want to try and really pull it all together. Site Builder, if we haven't explained it very well, you don't have to use Site Builder. We're not trying to push that necessarily, but it's just a great way of, it's a tool to pull everything together. So you can use it just to add in some of these dynamic layouts if you want, and then just do everything else yourselves. So yeah, we're just trying to make sure that we use best practice layouts. We add the functionality the way that we know it works well with Siteglide. We add any extra interactivity or extra features, and know that you guys can kind of add and customize on top. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else on this from our side, but any other questions from anybody?
I think one of the areas that we're moving to in terms of e-commerce is the kind of consolidating, because we're going to do quite a bit of work on shipping. So it's things like consolidating, maybe at shopping cart level, being able to choose a postcode or select a country, so that we're then getting those elements into place as well. So having these layouts is really handy to then build on those additional modules. But I wonder if actually the kind of a next step within Siteglide is to almost build some of those core features and functionality, whereby, and it'll probably be something we'll kind of do as a module, where we've developed a postcode lookup system for the UK, and kind of almost creating that as a module and then putting it into a Flowlight or similar layouts. So yeah, I think that's where we're kind of going to move to on the e-commerce, and it might be that we need some support from you guys on that to then build it into the into the shipping tab on the back end at this stage. And I think one of the first thing you mentioned is on your list early on is the ability for us to kind of affect that left-hand column. So yeah, I can see quite a few things like that coming together over the coming months. So yeah, and with these layouts, that'll be quite will come together at the right time, hopefully.
On the site,
definitely.
Sorry, go ahead, Luke.
Come on. No, you go for it.
And say on the site builder side, there's two relevant features here. One is that we do have the ability to create a layout which nests different layouts inside it. So you can have an e-commerce layout which nests a custom module layout inside it, and when they click install for the overall layout, it installs the files for not only the main layout but other layouts that appear inside. And by basically it names them all the same and includes and just keeps passing down that layout's name when it includes the next one. And we'll use that quite often to, for example, get multiple different kinds of e-commerce feature in one unit, that you just install one cart for the page and it will include the attributes, the discount, everything. So potentially we could have an alternate layout which includes a custom module. In other ways is completely the same, but it just adds that ready to come on. Obviously they'd need to install that module separately, but then the layout itself should be all done. We also have the ability for agencies to submit their own layouts to either of our themes. We have that infrastructure there. We would help you to learn how to do that. We have got docs for it in the site builder docs. So that's if you go to the Site Guru's website and /documentation, it's all there. And that so that is possible. It's a little bit of work to get started with it, but once you've got the hang of it, it does make sense. And the reason it is sometimes a little complicated to get started is that it is very flexible, very powerful. Things like that, those nested modules, make the infrastructure quite complicated, and that's why it takes a bit of learning. But yeah, if you're using something on every site, and it may save time to get that into a site builder module that you can just plug and play on each new site, that could save you time. It might be worth it.
Yeah. So sounds like a plan. And of course, where this will be relevant is things like Google Pay, Apple Pay, where actually it's not just a checkout payment element. It could be on different levels against the products or against the cards. So yeah, it'll be interesting times on the e-commerce front and how it all starts to plug together.
It's really interesting for me because about 2 years ago, Matt, you and I and others were discussing how do we set up this infrastructure to know that in the future with Marketplace, people could add their own layouts, their own modules. And it felt like too much work at the time because the use case wasn't necessarily there, but we knew that if we didn't do it, it would be a nightmare later on. And the ability you kind of need something start from. If we all work from different code, we're never going to be able to share modules and just install them and have them working. So that was the premise for going this route. And I think there's a huge opportunity with that. If more and more people adopt Flowby within Siteglide, which is happening. It's that we're recommending it because we've spent the most time integrating it. You'll just find that you can way more easily share and add and install time-saving features and layouts. So yeah, it's I think it's probably one of the most exciting things that we can do outside of core platform features this year, and it would be the biggest time saver, I think, for agencies as a whole. We're not going that kind of DIY off the shelf e-commerce store route that most other platforms go, which kind of devalues the service. We're going maximum flexibility and customization, but with as much off the shelf tools and less reinventing the wheel as possible. And hopefully you guys agree that that's a more flexible and powerful offering for you guys, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good.
Yes, yeah.
I think the missing piece for some is the design element. Obviously Flowbyte is best practice, well built, nice-ish looking, but I do think we want to discuss more about how we can help perhaps, or provide more on the design side to fully customize that further. I think that's the only reason why maybe somebody might still go and grab a theme forest template just to save on the design side, but I think it works out. Well, it doesn't work out well in the long run if you keep doing that. So but yeah, food for thought. I think we're on the right path, and yeah, we'll just keep expanding all of this so that you've got more available.
Yeah, cool.
Good. Okay, I'll just go on to the last point, and then obviously hand over to you guys. So admin panel customization. I've literally thrown something together just as just to sort of show what we're talking about, but they're I don't know whether anybody would use it for this use case in terms of completely changing the back end for a customer. Probably not, but it's just an example of how we could let you fully customize the portal. So you can already put your logo in. Potentially we can add some cool color functionality in there, which why not? And then the left hand side menu is the main bit that we'd be looking at allowing you to customize. So yeah, you've already got user roles, so you'd be able to control which existing Siteglide things appear here and the hierarchy, but also being able to create your own and manage your own menu entirely. We might even, I don't know whether we'll end up using menu builder to help with this.
Yeah.
And then obviously in the middle, you've got custom UI should you want to. So that can be a completely custom interface that you pull in from the front end effectively. You might run it at the front end anyway in a secure zone. Or you can just have Siteglide custom UI elements here. Any questions on that or ideas?
I think customers will absolutely love that if we can do it for them. It's probably quite an easy thing for us to roll out. You know, even on the left-hand panel, kind of put the logo up and choose 2 colours. I think most of our clients we could do that for very quickly, and it really would wow them. So
you think, yeah,
yeah, you know, it's their own control panel. I guess the only thing to add to that is then creating a CNAME for them so they can have website.their domain, but you know,
yeah, that'd be great.
Later down the line potentially.
It's actually more in discussion indirectly than we're looking at options with Platform OS on all sorts of things really, private stacks potentially, that kind of stuff, and those kind of things. So yeah, hopefully that's not too far away either. So, but I did wonder whether you would actually, whether any of you want to go this far with it. So I guess the downsides are docs would just be, you'd start from scratch, I guess, but the positive is you'd only give them access to what they need to see, so you don't have to train them on hunting around loads of stuff that they don't need. But does anybody else think you would actually go this far with it and customize each site for a customer?
Absolutely. That's something I want to do, especially with the more complex sites, because this way we try to make the sites a way that their customers actually don't need documentation, as you know, as few documentation as possible. And if it's self-explanatory like that, that helps a lot. I mean, the colors, I like the idea with the colors. It's obviously not necessary for that, but for look and feel and branding, that's just great.
Brilliant. Okay.
It's
a weird one.
There's one, sorry, I would to add something, that there's certain components when we build custom admins, and we obviously already do this on Drupal in our case. We have some parts which stay the same and other parts which are individual for each site. For instance, we have a menu section where we put in our own links to our company news site, or a status site, an external status site, or our support form on our agency side. So this section will always be the same. Or like settings will always be the same. And then obviously you have those modules, and we sort the modules in sub-menus. So each section of the site has a couple of modules or web apps, and they all belong, they all live in that sub-menu. That being said, it would be interesting to have kind of a template for those custom menus. So we could start with a template, our own custom admin template, and then build out for each individual site a individual structure.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it sounds like your standard settings, let's say, that might be a module that you create for your agency and then install on a site, and then fill in a bit like we have company information. I don't know if you've seen that, but there's just a web app effectively with some standard fields that every site might use. So it sounds like you'd have one of those. Yeah, but then we need something to let you set up automatically your default left-hand menu, let's say, or your default site settings, and then customize on top. Yeah,
it could be in your in the portal under your agency, where you fill out your agency name, etc., that you have a set of standard links that you would add there. That seems to be the sensible place, if possible.
Yeah, that's also
rather than the module, which has extra things to install when you start the site.
I think we'll want to make this feature as flexible as possible, as we always do. So rather than just say you can only edit these, we'll try and make it so there's an area where you can customize as much as possible. But it's that template angle that I probably haven't thought of yet. So that's really interesting.
Can I add some little thing, because I already see the nice colors and everything, and the logo, the custom logo on the top. At the moment when you collapse the menu, you still have the same logo up there, right? Just a little thing. It's like, if we're having a wish list anyway, what would be on my wish list in this case is that you have one logo for the expanded version of the menu, like exactly like this. You already have this when you use Siteglide, but when I use my custom logo, I always see like smaller version of my one logo up there.
Yeah, no, this is obviously, I don't think it's new, but with our new design, that's become far more relevant. Yeah, we'll get that added, so you can add a favicon, like a square.
Logo.
Cool. Yeah, I think this one's really exciting. As I say, it's not always the easiest kind of thing to prioritize above either, well, not above bugs and not above like critical functionality. But yeah, sort of going back to our consolidated, well, as I say, not finite list, but starting point. Does anybody have any thoughts on priorities from your perspective, or maybe what's missing?
I'd like to get discount codes higher up.
They're not in order, sorry.
3 years.
They're not in priority order. They're just.
Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry. I thought they were priority order.
There you go, John. It is top.
There we go. Marvelous.
I think if you guys need more inspiration in terms of discount system in e-commerce, you could have a look at, if you're not already doing that, at Craft Commerce. Craft CMS has a new version out since March with some nice features in terms of UI, UX. And I have a client, obviously, who has a very, like, we talked about that one, Luke, who has a very complicated discount system. And I'm like open for anything which makes this easier for me. Because they do discounts like not based so much on discount codes. We use them as a workaround, but they do discounts based on grouping of items, or they do discounts on what kind of customer group is buying them, and they combine those. So that gets rather complicated.
Yeah, we've got one where it's multiple products, and depending what the products are, depends on how much they get off and everything else, which is it's a bit of a headache. But yeah, getting customer groups in there as well it's just haven't gone that far yet.
I think it would be good. Again, maybe we need something, maybe an area in Discord to be able to discuss e-commerce as it's a huge area, and it's one, if we get it right, can be a real selling point. So if there's various people interested in that, let's try and compare what others are doing. I know John and Nick, you guys have, I think you've been pulling across maybe some Shopify and maybe some WooCommerce sites, so probably some learnings from, well, I think the advanced the product attributes management is a Shopify kind of feature that I think you're keen to see. Let's try and sort of consolidate some of those things, ideally. On a slightly different tangent topic, we're working a little bit on migration or import tools at the moment to help with pulling across data and like content and everything from other sites, other platforms. So it kind of makes sense to talk about what ones are probably the main focus, what you're likely to pull across from, or what features you like, and then we can look at that all together. Really, us looking at the structure helps us learn any nice features, but also work out how to help with the migration of data. And probably more for you guys, John and Nick, if you're noticing there's a lot of work involved with pulling across certain functionality or certain code from other platforms, let us know. And again, we can have a discussion around import tools and migration tools, because we've made some good progress on that recently.
And the main challenge we have is not Siteglide related, it's getting the data out of these other platforms that's an absolute headache. I'm talking to somebody whose WordPress site's just fallen on its backside several times, and she wants to migrate it. It's a membership site with quite a lot of modular elements. They haven't even actually managed to give me a login yet, so they're failing at the first. But yeah, the challenge is always just getting the data out, not getting it into Siteglide. I mean, yes, it would be lovely if there was an import tool where you could just take a spreadsheet and then map it within Siteglide when you lift things in. But is it the end of my world that I have to kind of shuffle a few columns around and make a couple of changes? Probably not. That's maybe a half-hour job I could do without, which could be a 5-minute job, but it's the 7-hour job of actually getting the data out of particularly WordPress. That's the challenge rather than anything else. So yeah, it'd be interesting and good to see. And we do a number of kind of relaying out kind of WordPress sites and lifting it. They've got an okay theme that they quite like, but it just doesn't work. But with those, it is literally a case of we just give it to our devs and they're building it in Tailwind from visually. So it's quite a job, but there isn't. I don't think there's a quick kind of import route around that.
Well,
it's inherently got challenges. Unless you tell us otherwise.
Well, I'm hoping I can tell you otherwise. We're sort of partway through on that little journey. I can't say too much, but we've managed to pull out data quite well from another platform that we've looked at specifically and got it into a format, well, got it out, and then able to automatically work with that into a Siteglide format and get it into Siteglide and convert the tags as well of most standard things. And got that down to a pretty automated process for some functionality. We obviously then would need to work through and do it for specific functionality like e-commerce, secure zones, that kind of stuff. So I have been wondering whether we open this up to look at other platforms. We need to be a bit careful time-wise, obviously, because we've got a roadmap that we want to stick to. But at the same time, it can be a huge area of time lost for you guys if you're constantly working on a certain platform. It is in our interest to help you speed that up if we can. So again, I think I'll be creating a few channels at this rate, but just having a few discussions on these kind of topics I think might be good. There's no point us doing something and you struggling somewhere else. So.
Yeah. I mean, from our point of view, there's no doubt that WordPress is obviously being the biggest platform worldwide and the one that's most likely to fall on its backside. That is definitely a thing. I appreciate from your point of view. I'm thinking you're probably looking at Treeple in terms of lifting sites over from there possibly, but yeah, ours would definitely be WordPress, and then secondary to that, although a lot less of an issue because we can do a lot without kind of. It's a lot quicker anyway. Secondary would be the Shopify side of things, where it's nice to bring in somebody's Shopify, but then so there's a lot of similarities, but then expand it within Siteglide. I'm talking to some jewelers tomorrow, and they're pretty convinced they want to stay on Shopify, which is annoying. It's going to be a redesign, but they could do so much more within Siteglide.
Yeah.
We do need the kind of it's jewelry, so we need the attribute thing in place, but we've got kind of 10 or 12 weeks anyway in that sense to play with if you guys are en route with it. But that would be the kind of thing that would be possibly handy. But,
I think both Matts have warned me that Shopify might not be as easy as I had hoped. I thought, oh, Liquid GraphQL, that'll be nice and easy. I think they're a bit wary, but obviously it's one we'd like to look at. And I think there are some obvious arguments of Siteglide over Shopify when you're not looking when you're looking beyond the Shopify features. Just on that topic quickly, we've put together a PDF. This was, I don't know if you saw it in Discord, but Daniel asked about some Webflow comparisons, because there's a company that he's trying to win over who've got sort of quite a lot of Webflow sites, and just working out quite a lot of sites and looking at Webflow. So we've put this together, which kind of general sort of Siteglide stuff, but then it sort of compares Siteglide versus a general sort of G2 review, but also looking specifically at some of the functionality and differences, and be very happy to do that again for any platform, hopefully with maybe a bit of input from you guys on what you found the differences to be, because we'll never be impartial, but we obviously want to be accurate and try and get the right key points in there.
In my chat with a membership site that's fallen over, I think I used the word robust about 17 times. It's okay. Another word instead of robust when I was chatting to them. So yeah.
I'll share this. I'll put this in the channel actually, but very happy to look at trying to. I mean, it's a template now. We could literally do the same thing if it helps you when trying to sell Siteglide over Shopify or whatever it might be. Yeah. Good, but yes, I'll start something about sort of imports and migrations as well, because obviously a lot of the work, as you say, is in the is in the getting and translating code from a specific platform. So it's not like we can just copy and paste it for WordPress, but we've obviously got all of the import tool, the other half of the scenario, which is getting it into Siteglide. We've got that there as a tool. Maybe there's some quick things we can do, like if we try and identify the hardest bits with WordPress, let's say, if it's mainly structure and data of effectively web apps, that's probably one of the easier ones and more tangible ones to work on, and then leave you guys to do things like assets and custom functionality manually. But if you can kind of help us work out what the really time heavy lifting ones are, maybe we can take a look.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, having an automated button. I think we've got 4 or 5 transfers from WordPress at the moment where they're just lifting across, and then we're tweaking the navigation or whatever and doing a review of it. But because as Nick says, they're falling on their backside, we need to get them over quick, or their current hosting's running out. And it's like, well, that runs out in like 2 weeks. And we're like, thanks for the not really very helpful, but if we could push a button and half the work's done, then great. So.
One thing we have done that I really like is our static site importer that's been around for a while is great in theory, but incredibly annoying in terms of once it's in, you've got a whole load of pages that are just, they've got the template in there, they've got everything, and you end up sort of deleting, and it's not that helpful from that sense. So what we have managed to do with this new sort of tool is build the template, build the pages, build code snippets, and have it all connected up. So at least your static pages are structured properly in Siteglide, and I think that's a huge benefit over what we had previously.
That's
so
really good, actually. Even that, in terms of you almost think you need to run a macro in Visual Studio once you've got the site into, as you say, strip out headers, footers, create templates. So yeah, if that's so, that would be really useful.
Because actually, the platform it's coming from might not actually be that relevant for that kind of work. Like if we can provide maybe even the import requirements for this tool, let's say you could provide us with CSVs in this format or something, at least we could then speed up the creation on the Siteglide side of things. I appreciate the export is still probably even harder. Yeah, we'll get some discussion going on that. Obviously, anything we can do to speed things up. Good. Apologies, it's longer than I expected to be talking for, but anything else that anybody wanted to go through? Over to you guys, really. Wow, all good.
Yeah, I think you've covered most things, Luke. So.
Yeah, even I have nothing to say.
And there's a first.
Great. Yeah, obviously, as always, if you're struggling with anything, let us know. Discord's probably the best place. But yeah, great to meet. Some really interesting things. I'll leave it a little again if anybody wants to jump in. No. Good. Okay, we've got the other session later on as well. We'll get the recordings up for anybody that missed it. But yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah, I think.
Cool.
Thank you, Luke.
Fantastic.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah,
Cheers,
speak soon.
Thank you.
Bye.